Hey, what's going on, people? It's SGZ here from the SpartanGameZone, and in this video I'll be counting down the top 5 legendary shotguns in Borderlands 3. If you want to get up close and personal as you lay waste in Mayhem 10, these are the guns to do it. A competitive class filled with powerful weapons, and I'll be telling you who has an increased chance to drop them, what makes them unique, and how you can go about maximizing their damage output. Snipers and launchers to go, so what next? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you could drop a like, and let's crack into it. We open this top 5 countdown of the best shotguns in Borderlands 3 with the Tigs Boom, a torque shotgun that can only be obtained by defeating Wotan, the final boss of the melee one Takedown. The Tigs Boom has been buffed a couple of times and yet again a couple of days ago, which is always nice, and the last buff increased its already high damage by around 20%. It's a unique weapon firing a typical shotgun round that brings with it a flurry of meteors that rain down on whatever you hit. The initial shot sets the stage for what comes next, signaling the meteor's drop points, which crash down and decimate opponents, just like they would a planet. It can also come in every element, which is always nice, and the meteors deal splash damage at a decent radius. Its magazine size is generally small, around that 3 to 5 range, but you don't really notice it. The reload speed is enough to counter that, and it is really good value for ammo. The meteors can fail to land though if you're not in an open area, and they will down you if you're not careful, but aside from that, it's a great shotgun and definitely worth the effort to farm. Moving on now to number 4, the Reflux, a shotgun dedicated to mobbing, and it can only be dropped by Genevieve if you're farming her on Mayhem 6 or above, and you fight her way at the end of the crashed ship in Voracious Canopy. If you've had experience with the Brainstormer, then the Reflux will feel very familiar to you. It's made by Hyperion, has a steady fire rate, and can only come in the one element, that element being Corrosive. It's not the best element, but that doesn't stop it from getting the job done. Its unique effect causes corrosive chains to lash out from the enemy you're shooting at and wrap themselves around another, draining the health bars of any enemy a chain is linked to. If that enemy is close enough to another, the corrosive chains will latch onto them as well, dealing a boatload of damage. The more ties that are bound to your opponents, the more damage it'll deal, and it's great at dealing with crowds. Of course, it's better against armored opponents, but it has no trouble tearing through shielded and flesh targets as well. Black can make extra special use of it by causing the chains to also count as criticals, and it's a great weapon that you can always count on to thin the pack. At number 3 is the Lob, an elemental torque weapon that has an increased chance to drop from Grave Ward you fight in the Floating Tomb on Eden 6. The Lob deals high damage at a steady rate and has a surprisingly large magazine size. It fires shimmering elemental spheres that travel slowly through the air and drain the health bars of all enemies that are close to it. That's because it doesn't deal impact damage, rather it deals proximity damage, which is to thank for its power. Normally a projectile would stop when it contacts an enemy, but the orbs from a Lob don't. They're unrelenting, travelling through your enemies and dealing spikes of damage as they do so. This makes it suitable for mobbing and allows you to get much more out of each shot. With that though comes a limit in situational effectiveness, as the projectiles don't travel for long enough or far enough to hit certain bosses or fast moving enemies. To avoid that, you want to be as close as you can to your target while you pelt them with orbs and see their life force quickly drain away. At number 2 is the Anarchy, an immensely powerful TDO shotgun from DLC 2. It has an increased chance to drop from Cuckoo Jack you fight in the Galna Shire, but I find farming Tom and Zam around in this area of Heart's Desire to be the most effective method. On the surface, the Anarchy is just a regular shotgun, if not a weak one, but underneath it holds raw power that no other shotgun can match. Just like how your coffee gets stronger the more teaspoons you put in it, the Anarchy gets more powerful the more enemies you kill, or the more automatic reloads you perform. That's because as you do those things, the Anarchy levels up, boosting its damage by 30% of whatever it was dealing at that level. It caps out at 10, and because the damage increase compounds, it isn't a 300% boost when fully stacked, more like 1200. Needless to say, at max stacks, it's a tank crashing through health bars with very little effort at all. It also comes in every element, including non-elemental, which is great news, and if you want the most powerful variant, look out for a x18 or x20 version. They'll consume an extra ammo per shot, but you'll empty the mag more often, and therefore stack up faster. There is one notable downside to the Anarchy which comes as a result of its devastation. That downside is its reload animation, which is extremely deadly depending on what one you get and how stacked your Anarchy is. You'll generally need to make an effort to avoid downing yourself, but if you do that successfully, the only people going down are all the enemies you set your sights on. Before number 1 reveals their face, let's cover some honorable mentions. The first honorable mention I have for you is the Brainstormer, the original Reflux Hyperion made and born to shock. It has an increased chance to drop from Katagawa Ball you fight right at the end of Skywell 27. The Brainstormer, like the Reflux, is suited particularly to mobbing and becomes stronger the more enemies there are around. Electric chain links are sprouted outwards from any enemy you shoot and can pierce up to 4 others in the surrounding area. Every active chain link adds damage to the weapon, and the Brainstormer will fry the circuits of enemies in a short space of time. Like the Reflux, the Brainstormer also saw an increase to its chance to chain to enemies, upping its maximum damage potential. It strips shields off of crowds of enemies extremely quickly, exposing their weaknesses which it then exploits. It's great to whip out when you need to calm a crowd, and it does so without hesitation. Another honorable mention is the Frequency, which can only be found in DLC 3 and has an increased chance to drop from Electricore, who you can find hanging out around here in the Obsidian Forest. The Frequency can come in any element, and because it's a melee one gun, comes in 2 that you can switch between and must be charged before firing. It fires large sonic blasts that ripple through the air, damaging anyone caught up in them. It initially fires the single shot, but that'll increase as you get more kills to a maximum burst count of 4, and when you reach its peak, this thing will blast opponents into another dimension. It's one of very few guns that have crashed my game, and that must mean it's good. There's no doubt it is, and once you get that killing spree started, the Frequency will rise to great heights. Now to another DLC 3 exclusive shotgun. This one is the Robin's Call, a Jacobs shotgun that can never come with an element and has an increased chance to drop from Garradin Lock, who you fight around about here in Ashfall Peaks. The Robin's Call fires in 2 short bursts, deals heavy damage and will return bullets to your magazine on critical hits. It consumes 4 bullets per shot, but if you're hitting those criticals, you don't need to worry about that. Accurate players will never have to reload, and when you hit them where it hurts, the Robin's Call will end enemies in a few quick fire bursts. If you're after the best one, look for one with a pellet count in the double digits, ideally 16. It's the same gun, just deadlier, but any Robin's Call can keep that skull crushing party going on forever. Another honourable shotgun is the Nothingness, a weapon made by Maliwan that you can obtain from Jamork, who you fight right about here in Cankerwood, a DLC 2 location. The Nothingness, like most Maliwan guns, can come in all elements and must be charged before firing. However, rather than automatically firing when fully charged, it fires after you release the trigger. This can take a little getting used to, but it doesn't take away from the effectiveness of the weapon. The Nothingness fires a typical buckshot round that is accompanied by a series of small explosions. These explosions are similar to those you see with the Flakka, but smaller and more controlled within your crosshairs. It's a nice effect and essentially doubles its damage. You want to aim at your target's feet to ensure the successive explosions hit them, although in doing that you do miss out on hitting criticals. It deals damage in chunks, and the constant barrage of pellets and subsequent explosions will see health bars get battered constantly. The last honourable mention I want to cover is the Bright Side, yet another DLC 3 exclusive shotgun that has an increased chance to drop from the Bronsons who you fight around here in the blast plains. The Bright Side brings TDR reloads back to where they should be. Reloading will cause 4 copies of the gun to spawn and hover in the air, blasting your enemies with fire, corrosive, radiation, and cryo rounds. The reload feature is extremely effective and fun to use. All you need to do is shoot once, reload, and let your minions do the rest. Relax, spawn more to your heart's content, and watch the massacre unfold. Constantly triggering the gun drones does cost a fair bit of ammo, but for the damage they deal and the enjoyment you'll have, it's definitely worth it. Number 1 has arrived and it wants to punch some faces. Yes, the Face Puncher sees itself at number 1. A unique Hyperion shotgun that has an increased chance to drop from Moldok the Anointed you can find here in Floodmoor Basin. The Face Puncher stands alone as a truly unique weapon. It doesn't deal weapon damage, although it will be boosted by mods with that role. Instead, it deals your melee damage, and because it's yours, the Face Puncher is truly what you make it. Just a few supporting items, namely a Brawl Award shield and White Elephant relic, and you can transform the Face Puncher into an unstoppable force that can blow away the unmovable object. It's absolutely unreal, all thanks to it dealing melee damage, which makes for some crazy builds and gear synergies that you won't get from any other gun. It destroys mobs in as little as 1 shot, and if it doesn't, the stickies from your White Elephant will seal their fate. It fires at a decent pace and handles well. As long as you can shoot them, you can kill them, and it doesn't take much at all. You don't even need to go completely down the melee build route either. You just want those items I mentioned. The Face Puncher is still unbelievably good on Zane, who doesn't have any melee skills to spec into. It's just unreal, a simply incredible gun that I'm sure you'll learn to love if you haven't already. So that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned of the 5 best shotguns in Borderlands 3 and how to get them dealing peak damage. If you did, consider dropping a like or subscribing, and I'll catch you in the next one.